Today, we're looking at Krishna's Goldfish. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, Krishna's Goldfish is a part of their specialty series of inks, and it's kind of this orange to red, much more red than orange ink. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do my writing samples. I put the ink into a different pen for a day. I then put it into a Noodler's Ahab with a modified flex nib to take my notes for this video. Now before we get to the writing samples, let's look at the sciencey bits. Up first is a chromatography, and I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately dunk it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see a pink across the bottom that doesn't really seem to be staying around, a lot of red, some orange up into that yellow. Now the one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. The pink across the bottom is much more there. The line is much more clear. And with the exception of that and this chromatography not traveling as far, it basically looks the same, but I do feel like that some of that pink on the bottom might want to try and hang around a while. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pens. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it basically performs well. All of that word can be read without any problem. However, when I'm looking at the I, the dot becomes quite a bit blurry, and the second H, that lowercase h, has quite a bit of feathering going on. Still, I would be willing to use this in a note-taking situation if I was a highlighter type person. Water reactivates and lifts a lot of this ink up off the page, leaving some of that pink behind that I was talking about. But if you look at the right edge, you start to see some of the white of the paper, which is really good news to make it only water to clean this from your pen. Pen flush did nothing that water didn't do. In fact, it did less, which is not our normal thing, but less ink came up from the flush, which makes me still at water. I think it's only going to take water to clean this from your pens. Bleach completely obliterated it, left a nice clean circle with only the tiniest little bit of some kind of off-white on the page still, but I think it only takes water to clean this out of your pens. For the inks I've tested, I found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Krishna's Goldfish has a viscosity of, you ready for this, 1.19. I think this might be the wettest ink I have ever tested. You put a lot of ink down when you're using this one. Wow, this has crazy flow. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper with the extra fine and medium nib. For the inks I've tested, I've found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Krishna's Goldfish has an average dry time of 13 seconds, meaning it went from being super, super crazy wet, almost to the point of water. It was right by that water line. And it has a normal dry time. Amazing. Now, let's look at the writing samples. I picked this ink up in bottle form back when I ordered a whole bunch of Krishnas from India. To keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's look at the Clairefontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 gives no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. It does give some shading. And when it does give shading, it's beautiful. When it gives shading. Look at the D. Look at the ISH. When it gives shading, it's beautiful. The extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. It's not giving us the shading here. And now it's just a red ink. 9 seconds to dry. The medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Spot of shading in quick. The Q goes to a light U and then a darker I, and that's it. That's all we see for the shading. When it shades, it's beautiful. When it doesn't, it's just red. 12 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby shows us no color variation. We really didn't get color variation.
Smear test says you could likely recover it. What about Rhodia? Well, we get no bleeding. We get ghosting. The 1.1 gives no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. The extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, 13 seconds to dry. Same tone that we got with the 1.1. Darker tone for the medium with no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, 18 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us we're not going to get color variation. We didn't get color variation. So Rhodia. Rhodia gives us no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 gives no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shading. It's just red. It's an interesting red. It really does look like the red in a koi. I mean, I get it. If I'm looking at red goldfish, it looks like it. Extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, 10 seconds to dry. The medium is a noticeably darker tone, with no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade, 14 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't get any color variation, but the smear, we could likely recover it. So what happens on yellow Rhodia? Well, the yellow Rhodia gives us no bleeding and no ghosting. What about any shade difference? None. No shade difference here. This is a saturated ink. The 1.1 has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. Same with the extra fine, no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. 10 seconds to dry. The medium, noticeably darker tone still, no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade again. 14 seconds to dry. Still the scrubby shows us no color variation. We got no color variation. The smear test, now this is a maybe here, so there's a change because of the tone of the paper. You may or you may not be able to recover this. Just disappointed with this particular ink. So I tested this on Hazel paper, the Hazel notebooks that I ordered when I ordered the ink from them. This is what they were selling. I do like this paper. It's a tooth-year paper. It tends to perform very well with a lot of inks. It has no bleeding. It has no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. Just disappointed with this particular one, but that's bound to happen. Extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, sheen, or shade. 3 seconds to dry, which is a very good dry time for a walk-around notebook. Medium, noticeably darker tone with no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. It took 5 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both shows us no color variation. We got no color variation. And the smear test? Maybe. Maybe you could recover it if you smeared it while you were writing. That's all that I have for the writing sample.
Instead of finding inks that look like Krishna's Goldfish, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I chose Krishna's Shamrock because I thought that green with this red, spectacular. And they do look good together. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Krishna's Goldfish? I think the tone of this ink that you get is largely controlled by the nib and flow of the pen you're using. Now, with that, when you write with a flex pen, you get a lot of the orange undertones, much more. With everything else, you largely get a lot of red-orange, and that's it. But this is a very nice looking ink. Thanks for watching.